It allows you to publish whatever you liked. It allows you to publish in any format. But the really important thing was it could be done on a server without asking anybody else, without having to register.
For most of Western history, you've had an authority framework that was vertical. God on top and you on the bottom, and Dad and the Pope and the King and whomever, you know, somewhere in that great white column. And suddenly authority, as a technical matter and as a political matter, was horizontal.
I mean, when you listen to people like Berners-Lee and all the rest of the crowd, they idealize this notion for the first time in human history. We've created something without a center. It can't be controlled. Well, the reason we created it is because these people were opposed to the notion of hierarchy and authority. So it wasn't an accident. They created their ideological wet dream.
And there was one final thing that turned the web into a kind of kryptonite, threatening to subvert society and the 20th century economic model. It was given away for free.
Tim Berners-Lee is someone who invented something of unbelievable power, but has turned his back on any kind of profiting from it, really. And I think we should celebrate him, not just his ingenuity, but the World Wide Web worked because he opened it up, because it was free for all to use. It's true open source in that sense, and he should be daily thanked by everybody who gets any pleasure or profit out of the World Wide Web for that supreme act of generosity, selflessness, and idealism.
Tim created a kind of set of tools, if you like, which he gave away to the world and said, I've created this toolbox, I'm not quite sure what to do with it, but see what you can do with it. And by giving that away, rather than controlling it, he started a whole process of huge social and cultural innovation.
But the very success of the web would rouse a giant. The idea that it was a creative space where all could participate equally would quickly be confronted by a very different model that saw the web as a place to buy and sell rather than to share. This kick-started a constant cycle of revolution and counter-revolution that still shapes the web today. And to understand the nature of this conflict, we have to jump back in time.
The year was 1975. Pink Floyd was on the radio, Jaws was at the cinema, and the Vietnam War had just finished. But it was also the year that a young Harvard dropout named Bill Gates arrived in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Gates had come to New Mexico to work for a small company called MITS. And 30 years ago, some of MITS's biggest customers were amateur rocket enthusiasts.
Well, rockets, we wanted to be able to do something more than just shoot them up and have them come back down. And the MITS Corporation created the first really small instrumentation packages so that we could take data, much like you take data and plug it into your computer today.
MITS soon moved on to more sophisticated electronics, creating the earliest affordable home computer, the Altair 8800, helping to set in train the revolution which would lead to the wired world of today.
The personal computer was the template on which the web had to be created. You had to have millions of these common machines in order for it to make any sense.
Bill Gates was developing BASIC, a programming language for the Altair. He saw the potential to make big money from software at a time when most personal computer users were hobbyists who gave it away for free.
He ended up at the West Coast Computer Fair, and I remember this fellow. We were all trading software back then, and I remember this fellow in a suit and telling everybody, hey, you shouldn't be giving away software to one another. You should be paid for your development. And we all laughed at him.
Did you?
Yes.
And now how do you feel? Do you think that's different?
I think he's a very rich man. That's why.
Gates had negotiated a royalty from each copy of the Altair software that was sold. So when he found out that hobbyists from the Homebrew Computer Club in California were making pirated copies, he was furious.
Well, we had one copy of the tape that our club library had purchased, and one member of the club took that tape and borrowed it for 2 weeks. And when he came back, he brought back like 4 copies. And we got a letter from Bill Gates, all upset, copyright, you're copying software and you shouldn't. Because it was basically, hey, you have to pay for what you use.
When we started Microsoft and, some people were copying the basic tape, I said in a letter, hey, we'll write more software if more people pay us. Something should be free and something should be paid for.
20 years later, Bill Gates and Microsoft would return to restage this battle online. The software for the World Wide Web had been given away for free because Tim Berners-Lee, like earlier pioneers, believed the online world should be about an ideal of sharing. For Bill Gates and others like him, it was simply the biggest business opportunity of the century.
The early internet felt like a radical departure from business as usual. There was this other dimension to human experience, which is really hard to relate to today, that had nothing to do with money. When business came onto the internet, the object of the game was to monetize this thing.
Before the web, the internet was administered by a public body and business was banned. This was only overturned in 1994, and these two opposing ideologies would slug it out in a battle for the soul of the online world. The most significant conflict began in 1995, when Microsoft launched Internet Explorer and set out to beat all competition. They effectively forced computer manufacturers to sell machines with it pre-installed. From nowhere, Microsoft ended up with more than 90% of the market.
Hey, this is software. We can do anything.
Only legal action by governments prevented total domination and the risk of the web becoming a kind of branded Microsoft experience.
Microsoft is a monopolist, and it engaged in massive anti-competitive practices that harmed innovation and limited consumer choice.
But the legal battle wasn't just about Microsoft. It was about two completely different ideas of what the web should be.
I think right from the beginning, there are kind of two competing views about the web playing out, which still play out now. One is that the web is this home for collaboration, for sharing, for allowing information to be free, for people being able to create things together in open platforms and sharing ideas. And that's embedded in the kind of geek hippie culture of the Homebrew Computer Club right at the start of all this in the 1970s. And then there's another, which is the kind of Bill Gates, Microsoft corporate view, which is, wait a minute, how do you pay the mortgage?
The legal ruling meant Microsoft had had its wings clipped, but the commercial ideology it represented was in the ascendant. And in this, the era of the dot-com boom, it seemed the web was ripe for business exploitation. But soon, the balance of power would shift once more.
As Internet Explorer popularized the web, bringing millions online, people began to learn what the web could do, for better and for worse. Its potential and our potential would pose a particular challenge to traditional notions of ownership, creativity, and power.
The web's anti-business leveling potential was about to re-emerge in a shocking new way. It would undermine centuries-old notions of copyright and property. The story begins with an 18-year-old in a college dorm room.
I started it, just because I thought it was exciting. It was just sort of a small project.
It ends a few years later with a multi-billion-dollar industry on its knees and more in the firing line.
Real people downloading Metallica master songs.
They want to sue everyone between the ages of, say, 13 and 30? I don't think so.
I guess I would be lying if I said that I didn't have any or didn't fear, going to jail.
The music industry would be just the first of many to discover the web could destroy established business models. In 1999, Sean Fanning released a small piece of software on the web called Napster. He'd first had the idea for the software at college.
I got paired up with a roommate who loved obscure rap music, and it was, around that time that I started envisioning an idea where people could install a piece of software that would let them share their music collections as well as access other people's collections.
Napster took advantage of the shift in music from CD to digital formats like MP3s that were easy to copy and swap. It allowed web users anywhere in the world to share music illegally with one another for free rather than buy it. The software pooled information about the music on every computer that linked to it. Users could search this giant database, hunting for tracks. When they found what they were looking for, Napster hooked up the computer storing the file with the person who wanted it. At the click of a mouse, music piracy had gone global. The leveling, sharing dream of the web had produced a more sinister outcome, encouraging thousands of people to break the law for the very first time. The band Metallica became the music industry's unlikely mouthpiece.
If you have the right to download my music for free, then let's say that you're a plumber or you're a car mechanic or whatever, then I have the right to call you up at any time and demand that you come over and fix my plumbing for free, or that you come over and fix my car next time it's not functioning for free.
I never imagined at the outset that Napster would change the music industry at the level that it did, but they certainly felt the pain of being forced into a world of digital distribution.
After 2 years of legal battles, in 2001, Napster was restricted, then shut down. But other, more sophisticated services simply took its place. Today in Britain, the entertainment industry claims 95% of music exchanged online is unpaid for, and lost revenue from illegal downloads of films, software, TV, and music is worth £531 million.
Our computer technology lets us copy everything instantly. It's very scary. It means a new world. A new world's ahead. And it may take decades. It may even take centuries before we actually get to the final ending point.
So the web has threatened the way any traditional industry based on information and communication does business. But this dramatic shift involves more than just theft and piracy. It also is about a way in which the web appears to be staying true to its anti-authority, leveling ideals.
The web's essential design, the ability to share information globally and instantly at virtually no cost, wrenched control from the traditional middlemen, the agents, the publishers, the newspaper editors. It allowed people to connect directly with one another, so everyone could have an audience or a following. In this brave, new, connected world, you didn't have to be anybody to be a somebody.
When the web first came, it felt like the whole new world was opening up because you had a way to be a publisher that you never had before. There were only very few discrete sources. Who are the publishers of the world? Oh, I can go here, and I can go there, and I can go there, and you were limited.
Now someone with an iPhone can post a video, make a podcast, connect to someone else. Anyone with the means of communication through a computer can have access potentially to a vast audience.
User-generated content is the jargon for this creative revolution. It's estimated a fifth of all the material on the web is now made up of content created by amateurs. All human and animal life is there. One of the biggest distributors is YouTube, a website that allows anyone to put videos online.
That means everybody has a chance to be seen. I think in the past, again, the traditional models would survive around scarcity. Which I don't think necessarily is healthy for society, for ultimately a few people to have the control of the creation of all the content within the world and then have the control of all the distribution.
YouTube posted its first video in 2005. Now the site is viewed more than 1 billion times a day and has created its own new stars.
I always tell people we're the stage, they're the performers. But I don't look at us as a service as trying to exploit that. What we're trying to do is just provide